Again, so I'll remind you, we are playing this 9.14 replay in the 9.15 client, so there will be some bugginess, particularly pertaining to the caps. Alrighty, so top tier, that's good news. Pretty much similar comps. There's a lot of already, which is sort of a mixed bag. Again, you want to go back out towards the town here, and then again, remember that the best way to do it is to, I'll show you as you head out there, but basically once you come over here, you want to sort of stay on the back side of this K line and then cut in over here, because what you'll notice, and I'll pause it when you get into that area, right, and we'll talk about view ranges and things like that. But eventually what you want to do is get set up over here, and then you'll want to see what your team can figure out. What we've always said about Lakeville whenever we see it in pubs is that the South has an advantage to play through the middle, because the light tanks can go over down on this shoreline here and spot into this area very, very easily with very little consequence to them. But you don't really see it a whole lot in pubs. And so you're taking a good path to go through this back. If you already spawned back there, that's fine. If you didn't spawn back there, if you spawned up there, like, you know, on the opposite side where this JT is, you can go around the front of this building, but then you want to loop back over here. And essentially the target point that you're looking for is to be in a position where, see this, where this Type 62 is at, where he can't come up here and spot you very easily, right? And so this yellow line here is the limit of detection in the game. So that means even if he's got max view range, right, unless your tank has 0 camo, he's not going to light you. And then see, as you move forward here because there's a wall right here, so he can't actually spot you until roughly about where you're at. But I always find that if you do, like, this path that you're driving, to me is perfect. You want to drive through there, you won't get lit. If you drive through this forward position where these guys are at, it's not super easy, but they can light you through there. You can get return fire the other way on them, which is why playing this middle from the north is dangerous. But this is a good path. This is the path that I always take. I almost always go on the right side of this tree. So, good job. Thanks for the resubs, Z-Taylor. Okay, and the Bulldog was killed in the middle, which is unfortunate because, again, he didn't need to. It's really easy to play this map from the south in a light tank. You do have a lot of guys still in the base and in this valley side, so that you do have to be a little bit careful. You do have the IS-6 in the patent with you, though, so that's good news. Looks like the E-75 is coming through this way as well. And then basically the way that you want to do it is you want to figure out where the teams are at. If you're in a heavy, you want to move forward. If you're in a medium, you kind of want to hang out where this IS-6 is at until your heavies move forward, because you don't want to move so far forward that you have to start trading with bigger guns on the way there. But since you're in a Conqueror, you can push forward here. You can even peek down this lane a little bit and then just back off. You don't need to drive so far down here, because one of the things that you do when you start driving down this lane is you start becoming committed to being in here. So if somebody comes on the backside of this church, right, it's going to take you a while to back out of there. So what I want to do when I look down this lane, because what you really want to do is you want to get an idea of, are they pushing anybody down through this lane towards the little church area right now? And if they are, you get your free shot of damage and then back off. And so I actually will come out a little bit further out here, like about where this car is at, and then you can shoot down that lane, right? I guess you don't even need to go as far to the car as there, but basically out here, right? Artillery has a theoretical firing lane through here, but that's only if they're on this side already, and they have a very limited alley within which they can shoot down there. So it's really easy to get out here, right? Spot anybody coming through here if they're pushing there, get your free shot of damage, and then back off without anybody else really having time to react. And then you also want to look and see what your team is doing. Well, that worked out well for you. And then you don't want to sit on this corner. Again, this corner is a little bit difficult because artillery can fire towards the front of that corner still, depending on where they're at. And this is not something that you really want to poke into. You don't really want to poke into the JT there. Like, especially when you know that there's at least 2 guns there, and it turns out there were 3. And they're all tier 9 guns, right? They're all top tier guns. And this is also the only corner that you can get artillery on. So they're pushing forward here, right? And that's actually good for your team in theory, because you can actually, this is a very, very vulnerable position. You got guys who can potentially flank them. But from the position that you're at, you can't really do a whole lot because you're still going to be poking into these same guns. That shot was a little bit high. But again, like, you're spending a lot of time right now not getting very good shots and poking into multiple guns in order to do it. And so this is the problem with making bad trades, particularly early, like when you know that there's multiple guns. And it's not like they were all lower tier guns or you were in a highly armored tank, right? They were top tier tanks with good guns on them. And so this is what I felt like you should have done a little bit earlier, because you could have done a lot to pressure these guys. And this is good. Shoot the track. Excellent work. The E75 should finish off. This IS-6 is coming around behind your E75, so your goal should be to prevent this guy from shooting your E75 for free. No, there's no reason at all. That KV-4 was not going to do anything to the E75 frontally. And the E75 shooting into the side of him was not going to be a problem. You don't need to jump in front of this E75 to take his damage for him, because you're lower health. But you needed to punish that IS-6 for having the audacity to shoot at your teammate. And then you got to be a little bit careful about how you poke out here. There is a little bit of an artillery lane through here, depending on where they are positioned. That was an excellent shot. Their ISU is coming through the middle, so you got to be a little bit concerned about that. You got another guy down low. And now you might want to start going in front of your E75 here. You want to push at the Patton, because you're putting your E75 in a little bit of a tough spot. Because you could have taken that shot. So now this is fine. You want to allow him to think that he has to push through there. You're always going to be lit. Nah, you can almost get away. Nah, not really. And you might as well take a little bit of a risk and push him here. And then you can push the M103 from either way, but you've got to do something. Like, doing nothing is no option. Fortunately, you're losing the base. Wait for your JT. Oh my god! And then go back to base. They have one arty that's out here someplace. It's the only thing that's on the rest of the map. Everything else is currently in your base. And then what you really want to do is, if you had a better camo tank, you could come high and hide in the bushes there and spot and allow the JT to shoot. Since you don't really have that, you actually want to come low and play down there. I presume they're on the cap right now. Unfortunately, remember, because we were playing the 9.14 replay and a 9.15 client, we don't get to see cap. Now remember, the artillery is in front of you. Lol. Blind shot, best shot. unfortunately you're going to get RD'd. So, and that's the problem with playing this particular position, is that you don't have good enough camo to deal with that efficiently. Oh, they already missed. Oh, you got a chance. IS-3 fired. And you want to close this gap. You want to close this gap because you want to get down into that low position there. You don't want to sit where you're at. And again, a lot of this is recognition. You want to push as low as you can so that you can get as far over there as you can, because that's going to close down the angle that artillery has to get you. Because that's really the biggest threat to you right now. You don't want to sit out here. You do not want to sit out here. Push forward. Forward. Understand what you're afraid of, my man. Understand what you're afraid of. You're not nearly as afraid of that IS-3. Okay, so you probably actually could have won this. Your team didn't play it very well, right? Look at where most of your tanks died, right? In the southwest quadrant. They never really left the base area. That's always bad. And camping is always, not always bad. It's bad, 90% of the time. 10% of the time it works out, not because it's a good idea, but because the enemy pushes in, one at a time or foolishly and allows you to justify the position. But most of the time it's bad. And so most of the times when you see losses, you'll see clusters like this, where you're just like, okay, everybody died inside the base. That doesn't really help us. Where you look and see where most of their team died over here, which is actually good, because that means that, hey, look, there's 7 red dots here, and there's only 4 green dots. So we traded 4 guys for 7 guys, right? So you actually traded pretty well over here in the city. But a couple of mistakes that you made, again, was you don't want to poke into multiple top-tier guns to get your one shot. And when your one shot isn't really that good, and the only place that you can go to get that one shot is also an arty lane, you want to be careful about repoking that, especially when you see that these guys had already pushed forward over here. That means if you swung around down here, you can abuse these guys while these guys are still back here. So there's no reason to continue poking this lane. I think that this lane is good for getting early damage at some guys that want to push across. But after that, I don't feel like it's worthwhile to play this lane at all. This lane right here, there are some arty shots that can hit into parts of it. But this lane right here is fairly solid. But this lane right here is really the best, because depending on how they're set up, the way that they were set up in this particular case, you could play this line and put a lot of pressure on them from this side with that E75 sitting here, getting any other sort of stragglers from that side or preventing them from shifting over on that side. So I felt like you lost a lot of health there, which you really didn't need to. You got a little bit lucky early in terms of your trading with the JT. But, that will happen. Again, at some point you got to not cut your losses. You got to, you're playing with house money there, so just back off once you got like 3 shots of damage, and I don't think you had taken 1 yet. Yeah, just recognize that that's not an ideal situation for you, I guess is what I'm saying. And then coming back, it's fine. Again, like playing that position where you're at, there's actually some bushes over there that, let's see, can we see them from here? Not really. You can sort of see them through the smoke here. I'll use the corner of this the team icon. So there's some bushes over in that area right there that you can sit in and actually spot the cap if you've got decent enough camo. But this isn't one of those tanks, right? You know that they had 4 tanks in this area and they had 1 artillery somewhere back out here. You don't know where it is, but that's fine. So it would have been much better for you to take this low ground and come up over here and try to deal with them. And especially once the GW Panther missed you over here and the IS-3 bounced you by hitting you with an auto bounce angle, you should have pushed down low over here, drop spot as soon as you can, and then come back up on this side over here, because that basically cuts down on the GW Panther's angle if he hasn't left the base, and most artillery don't reposition. So then you would have been in a position where you didn't have to worry as much about that GW Panther unless he moved. And then if he didn't move, you would have had time for him to move all the way over. So I still think that was doable, even with the poor trades at the beginning. The other thing is, try to preserve that E75 a little bit better. He didn't do a very good job of positioning himself, but again, you know, when he's at full health, I'm not asking you to take shots for him, but you need to be able to punish these guys that are trying to flank him. But otherwise, GG. Oh, wait a minute. We gotta look at stats. Forgot about that. Alrighty. So we click stats. Not sorted. Yeah, you didn't get a whole lot out of your team. Well, that's unfortunate. But that'll happen a lot in these types of games. You had a lot of people that kind of hung back in the base, which did not help you very much. But yeah, I think that was a winnable game. But you did well on the shootings, which is good. So there is that. GG, nice try. Yeah, not being able to see the cap counter is kind of annoying there. Hopefully there's not too many capping games tonight. Alright, so the next one will be DeathRattleShakes T10 game on Ensk. Ooh, fancy. And again, I will remind you that we were watching 9.14 replays in the 9.15 client, so there will be some bugginess, particularly as it pertains to the caps. Alrighty, there is no artillery. There are a lot of tank destroyers. That's interesting. This is actually one of the few times that if I was in a medium tank, I would say, yeah, the field might not be a bad play. In a T10 though, I would definitely come in through this area here. I always like trying to get a free shot of damage into this area right there, because you usually can, and you just basically position yourself to reverse side scrape in that area right there. But a lot of it depends on where your team goes. When the enemy team is a lot of tank destroyers, they tend to be pretty campy. Unfortunately, Ensk is actually one of the few maps where camping is a theoretical viable strategy, so you got to be a little bit careful about your positioning here. The other thing that you can do, and it looks like this challenger might do it, is you can set up right here at the very start, and you can get shots at these guys as they come in through here and then back out. But I don't usually do that a whole lot, depending on what the team does. It looks like you're going on this side. You don't want to quite come out at such a sharp angle. And you don't see, like, the problem with, I like setting up on the other side is because the problem is that you don't have a very good shot. Like, they're going to be hold down as much as you have a shot there. But that was a good trade because what was it behind you? The T30 punched him in the face as well. See where your other T10 is? That's the other position that I like going to. Doesn't look like they have a lot here yet. What you want to do is you just want to peek forward and see how many of them pushed up. Like that M103 is going back. One of the things that you can do is you can, if that M103 continues going up here, you can actually go into this window right here and be hauled down. Pushing forward here is not bad. You need to be careful because there's a T95 right there, and you just don't want him pushing into you. But you're not really super concerned about it, but playing this window is usually a really easy thing to do in a tank where you can hold down. If you've got gun depression, you can also go up on the ramp, but I don't really think that that's super necessary. And they're sitting back, which again is advantageous to you, not so much to your KV5 for doing whatever it is that he's doing. Shoot at the M103, shoot at the M103! Ah! He's going to cross into the open right there. Unfortunately, your KV5 is about to start blocking your shots, which is not so good. And then you want to be really careful here because it's going to be difficult for you to take this corner. You can get shots on that Tiger 1, probably. I think the T95 is looking away. I can't, or looking at you, sorry. But I can't really tell, so you need to I can't quite get my mouse over. There, you got to be concerned about what's happening in this middle over here because you're about to lose over there and you don't want to get flanked. Well, 295 didn't. So what you actually want to do is you want to move through here if you can. If you want, you can chase down those guys, but I don't think that that's big of a deal. So this is the thing that I always think is, and I think that this is a good move. I think this is an aggressive move. But whenever you do a move like this where you start pushing into the enemy team, you want to start looking, right? You know where most of their teams are at. So see how you're like pushing into this encapsulate. So the way that I look at it is that I always want to break through on one side. You got a bunch of low tiers over here, so you can start working on that side over there, as opposed to trying to go through here and then taking on potentially the T30 at the same time as the Luva. And so if you want, you can put pressure through this side. That'll probably be the best thing. But you want to make it happen quickly because the noose is starting to close on your guys here. And so you actually want to just push past this tiger. And there's no... Like, you need to put some pressure on this T95, because see these guys right here? All of a sudden they're in a bit of a crossfire, and the Luva is starting to get behind you. So this alley that you're in is not super favorable. Although your guys have now pushed behind the T95, so now you don't have to worry about it as much. You do want to push out in one direction or the other, though. And then the T30 is on that corner right there. So again, you know, this is a situation where if you're not afraid of these guys, you want to go and kill that T30, right? Because you've got the speed. But basically what you've done is you've made this into a bunch of distinct engagements, right? Where there's one engagement over here, which is 1v3. There's one engagement over here that's 1v1. There's one engagement over here that's 1v2. Right. So you're gonna win your engagement because these tanks and players are just not as good. But it's at the cost of losing all of those other engagements. Well, you did win the T30 engagement, so there is that. And again, at this point, you just want to take these guys down as fast as possible. He just shot his teammate. And then that Roomba's starting to cut across. Well, you can shoot the Roomba through the window. They're all sitting out here where they're going to be in areas where you can shoot them. So that's good. I would switch to HE now. Everything left you want to hit with HE. And so you're going to need to move over to this lane over here. Because see how your guys are all over here? That Roomba's not going to poke out to you. He's just going to wait and shoot your buddies there. Or it's unlikely that he will. You can move over here. You can use this area right there if you wanted. You did load HE, which is good, but... Again, I never like sitting in one area. And remember, like, that HE will not go through that truck. Again, you still can move over here, which is going to be to your advantage. You don't want to be close to that Roomba. You want to be someplace where you can reverse side scrape, which you have room to do right here. You don't have room to do it. Or it doesn't look like you have room to do it right there. Although he's probably putting cap pressure on you now, would be my guess. Oh, there he is! You might as well have gotten, you know, hazard the shot. Oh, there he is. Don't go side profile to him. No. Move forward a little bit. So if you move forward a little bit, you probably could have shot over the backside of this T-28 Proto. Like when you know that he's already fired, right? He's gonna back off, and then you just calculate whether you can get a shot down over here, because that shot was not gonna magically go through the turret of that tank. And at this point, you need to take some sort of risk, because if they flank you, you can shoot right through here. Because if they flank you, then you're pretty much done. So you need to take a risk someplace. And right there, you could have reverse side scraped to get a shot on him as well. There you go. You've allowed him to get set up, but you need to take this risk. Like, this risk needs to happen. Because eventually the waffle's just gonna push into you. Go get him! Retrack, retrack. Oh, just barely. You want to go a little bit... Okay, I guess you didn't need to go further out. Oh, look, the base got capped. Yeah, that's a problem with running the 9.14 and the 9.15 button. But yeah, so you just needed to take a risk on that guy a little bit earlier. Just hope for the bounce, hope for something, because you can't take that fast enough. So that was fine. I think the biggest problem was that you, when you came through here, you didn't just keep pushing through. Right, and making sure that T-95 got down and keeping everything else in front of you. A lot of times, especially when they're lower tier tanks, like you could have very easily, you know, pushed past this Tiger 1. Maybe the Tiger 1 would have shot you as you got into position. Got to this position right here. The SU-122 44s can't shoot you. You can get shots on the T-95, which is still facing this way because your other guys were pushing. He was basically getting flanked from two different positions. And you could have gotten shots at the T-95. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll ignore the low tier tanks, particularly if they're not good players, because they can't really hurt you. All you got to do is maneuver over here, position your armor to face the Tiger, and then kill the T-95, and then you can kill everything else there. And in doing that, you'll keep everything else in front of you. You chose to go back through here to engage the Luva and the Super Pershing, which I think is a mistake. You can dominate them, sure, but again, as we pointed out, it was at the cost of basically losing everywhere else. I mean, I guess technically the T-30 beat the other T-30, but they were the guys that lost over here were then able to engage over here. Meanwhile, that Luva and that Super Pershing, they weren't really going to contribute to your guys losing over here. They were, you know, no matter what you did, those guys were probably not going to contribute a whole lot to the outcome of the game, at least in that particular stage of it. And then the more of your guys that you potentially have alive over here, that would have made it a lot easier. And so, again, I like that aggressive move, but again, whenever you start doing that where you're driving into the team to get to a back line, always look to break out in one direction or the other. And I like that initial direction that you chose for those reasons, because the T-95 is relatively immobile and there's a bunch of low tier tanks there that you can bully. So I like that position, but I just felt like you should have just driven through it to dominate them, and rather than, you know, that 122 of 44 of those over here ended up doing, you know, 3 more shots of damage to you than he needed to. And that was a bit of a problem. Alright, so if we look at the stats. I mean, some of your guys on your team did pretty well. The top tiers did reasonably well, so that's always good to see. You didn't get a whole lot from the bottom tiers. Their bottom, I mean, their team in general was all basically as top heavy as your team. But yeah, that's probably one that you could have won. That T-95 was probably allowed to do a little bit too much with a little too little. But I liked the early positioning, and I thought overall it was a pretty good game. Good shooting. GG, nice try. Alrighty, and so the last one that we'll look at is Oin's Super Pershing game on Fjords. And again, I will remind you that we are playing 9.14 replays in the 9.15 client right now, so some things are a little bit buggy, particularly the caps. In that the caps are non-existent. Or the cap timers are non-existent. Alright, so let's see. Roughly similar comps. You might be a slightly heavier, but not in any way that's super meaningful. So one of the things I like to do in the Super Pershing is set up here to start, and if you've got anybody that goes in there, then you can cover them. And if you've got people sitting back here to cover you, then you can go in there. But you don't have a whole lot of speed, so it's not like you can burn into that area. Look at this 59-16. Spotting from the back. It's like, spot for me, guys, so I can snipe. I'm not really a particular fan of coming up into this area over here, particularly in the Super Pershing, because I don't feel like you can do a whole lot of spotting, and anything that you do spot, you usually don't get a whole lot of great shots here, and you're also exposed to getting shot from a lot of different areas. So I don't really feel like that's super awesome. You're not sending a whole lot to the south here, so you also have to be aware of that, because you might end up needing to anchor that as well. You don't have a whole lot of coverage through this area right here, which is a little bit of a bummer. Your 110 went all the way over here and then came back through here, which is not good, because then that allows these guys to shoot them in the rear, like they're doing. Look at that leopard. Getting his damage in. I don't like pushing through this area, because pushing around this corner allows a lot of different people to shoot at you, including artillery. You've got a bunch of guys coming through this side, so you can afford to be a little bit more patient. You need to be more worried about this south, and so the artillery hits you, which is unfortunate. But at least you know where the artillery is now. You still need to worry about this area down here. You've got a bunch of guys over here. You're not really going to get shots at them from your position, so you have to hope that your guys do well. But you need to slow these guys down, because you've literally got 2 tanks anchoring this side, and one of them is a light tank that's anchoring this middle here. And these guys are definitely going to be able to beat that 110 down there. And you're showing way too much side here. Remember, the only vulnerability on the Super Pershing, especially when you're top tier, is the sides of the tank and to some extent the roof of the tank. And so you very easily could have just bullied that KV-13. So your indecision is like killing you right now. These guys are definitely going to win on this side, so you got to keep that in mind. And this is a dangerous push through here, because these guys are a little bit occupied, and presumably the artillery is now looking up there. But the problem with being high on this hill over here is that these guys, like if there's somebody up here, they can just shoot you in the rear. And so the problem is that you need to go back and defend the base at some point. So playing this side of this map is not going to be really fruitful. You're going to need to go back. So you're doing a lot of driving forward, driving back, which is not really helping your case too much. You need to be careful not to push too far forward here, because as you push more forward, and you got to worry about this KV-13 coming behind you, but as you push more forward, then these guys down here can get shots into you as well. And this is something that you could have done already, which is just bully. Right? You could have bullied that KV-13 when he was down there shooting at your SB-1C. You can bully that Hellcat. You can bully that 100Y. You can bully a lot of tanks here. And all they gotta do is put cap pressure on, and you're not actually fast enough to get back. And that's sort of the liability. You have to hope that your T-44 actually goes back. You want to just push this guy. You need to take a little bit of a risk here, because if they just get on cap, you're not going to be able to get back in time. He missed. Just keep pushing forward. Does not look like they're getting... Oh, actually, I was about to say, it doesn't look like they're getting on cap, but we wouldn't know because we're not playing the right client. You can actually spot them through that little thing right there, but you don't really get good shots. It's best to just barrel around there. I presume that the timer is getting close. No. That's the worst guy that you wanted to see, but... Shooting the track, good idea. Remember that resets. And then you don't want to turn your turret too much, because that's going to allow the Super Pershing to potentially shoot it. You'd actually want to start shimmying yourself out. You actually want to start shimmying yourself out this way, so that as you turn your turret towards him, right, you can keep all of these guys in front of you. Because see how much side turret you're giving the Super Pershing? If he wanted, he can... As you turn to shoot at those guys, he can just wait. He just missed, so you've got a little window now. And they're all sitting on cap, which is good for you. The Super Pershing just shot again, so again, you're only worried about these guys here. The IS-3 is now charging you, which is good for you, theoretically. They could have done this a while ago. You actually want to track him out there. And then you can hide behind him a little bit. Shoot him through the track. No, you want him to retrack him there. You want his position to be poor. And then... Yeah, he's giving you too much side. Yeah, exactly. So just shoot him through there. The Super Pershing hasn't really shown the ability to damage you. So you actually just want to keep shooting him through that track area. This is a mistake that I see a lot of Super Pershing players make. Is that they do this reverse. But the problem is that the Super Pershing, as you just shot that Super Pershing through the exact same angle, by shooting him through that front drive wheel, you can actually deal damage to the tank. And so you want to be careful when you do that. You'd almost always, especially when you're top tier, you'd almost always want to lead with the front of your tank. It's a lot like playing the 4502B. Because of the front of the tank is so strong, you almost want to bait shots into it. Say, hey, look at this, shoot at this area, right? You don't want to ever present an angle where, okay, they've got a smaller shot, but if they hit that shot, they're going to deal damage. You want to give them the big shot where, okay, this is easy to hit, but you know what? It's going to be difficult to pen. Do it again, see? Oh no, the Oni is coming. It doesn't look like he's shooting at you, which is good. No, don't push forward, don't push forward, don't push forward. So, what you could have done, I mean, if you can kill the Super Pershing, that's fine. So, here's my entire rationale for saying don't push forward. A couple of things. One, you don't want to get hit by artillery. You'd have to move pretty far to get hit by artillery, but that's neither here nor there. The reason is that you can get shots on this Super Pershing and still use this IS-3 for cover. Right, and get the exact same shots, and still have your armor facing the Oni. You know that you have a period of time to kill the Super Pershing before the Oni is going to be reloaded. And you want to be careful about face-hugging him here because of the fact that he's actually using HE. And the fact that his artillery may not care whether his Oni lives or dies. And see, the problem is, so you're banking on the fact that a couple of things, that the artillery is not in position, but one of the things that I want to point out is that the artillery doesn't actually even need to hit you to kill you. If he hits the other side of this Oni, you'll probably die. So sitting next to the Oni, I don't think is really that advantageous. If you had, let's say, 300 health, you could probably do it. Okay, now you just need to do something. We're gonna play this Benny Hill style. And you're going together, which excellent. You do not see this enough. Because he can't kill you both unless you're sitting right next to each other. And if he sits on cap, then you sit on cap. If he leaves cap, you guys both gotta leave cap. So, again, the problem here is, oops, hang on, let me fix my play speed. Okay, the problem here is that you've given him the only opportunity that he has to win this game. You've separated and allowed him to pick one of you off. That's the only way. The only way that he has a chance to win this game is if that happens. So you're capping here, which I don't think is necessarily the right play. I can't really see the cap timer, but he's going to be loaded by that time. I think you've got the right position. I think you should basically hang out right there. And he's going to come from one of two areas, right? He's going to come... Oops, I turned off the UI. Most likely he's going to come over the top, which isn't the right play. But he'll either do that or he'll come from right there. So basically what you want to do is be in a position where you can spot both. And that position is right here, right? You want to be as close to this as you can. For a couple of reasons. One, it makes you harder to shoot because you've got the shadow of this hill to cover you. But two, if he comes from over the top, right, you've got 50 meters at which you can proxy spot him. And if you give up 10, 15 meters of that, then that gives him an opportunity to get a shot off. So you want to stay as close as you can right here so that you can cover both. As it turns out, he came from over there. So good for him. So you did win this game, but you probably had a lot of chances to lose it. More chances to lose it than win it. And so there's a number of mistakes. I felt like coming through this area at the start was a bad idea, particularly when you know that you don't have much on this south. Like you literally had one single 110 on this south here, and he was not that good of a player. He drove through here like this and got shot in the rear by a bunch of their tanks over here. And you had one light tank guarding the middle. And so that's not the time to say, okay, well, let's go see if we can push around over here. Particularly while artillery is still active and nobody else on the map is lit. It's just too easy to counter you into that area here. You could have prevented that SP1C from dying by taking out that KV-13. There's not a whole lot that the KV-13 can do to you frontally, and you could have just abused him, which you later did on this side. But why wait until people kill your team before you bully them? Bully them before they kill your team, I think is usually better off. And then came back and defended the cap, which is the right play. And that ended up working well for you. Micro positioning there, you got to be a little bit careful about that, and particularly with how you play the Super Pershing, how much of the front drive wheel you give. Remember, if you angle the tank at all, like even if it's only this much, you can get shots through that drive wheel like you were getting on that other Super Pershing. Same thing, as you turn the turret away from somebody, right? People can get shots into the side turret of the tank really easily as well. So you have to be careful of that. Otherwise, and then at the very end, again, 2v1, you're both one shot, stick together. If he leaves the cap, you may not like it, but you're almost obliged to leave the cap because you gave them the only opportunity that he had to potentially win that game by either hitting you with a blind shot or hitting you with a snapshot. That's the only way that he could have won that game, or pulled that game out. So just be careful of that when you have 2v1s. All right, if we look at the stats, not bad. A lot of your team didn't do a whole lot, but a lot of your team went north, and that's, I mean, it's not a bad play per se, but I always feel like the west side has an advantage to play through the north. They just have more firing lanes through there. It's more difficult to push through there. I always feel like the east side has an advantage to win through the middle, but you did well, which is good. 100 base capture, 100 base defense. Oh yeah. GG. I'm happy that you won, but there's a lot of places where you could have lost that. And either got lucky or, well, you won, so that's good, but there's a lot of room for improvement, I guess is probably the better way to put it. But I'm glad you won. So GG to that.